finished the program, we arranged a special arrangement of professional roundtable. So we have two persons here. One is on my right-hand side is Caroline Conning. She is a manager of Korean Peninsula Center for Peace and Conflict Studies. And then left-hand side is, as you know, Green Ford is a long-time member of European Parliament. Is from United Kingdom. So we're gonna have like about 15 minutes talk from Caroline Conning, and then about 10 minutes from Green Ford. And then we'll take questions from you probably. Okay, let's start from the Conning.
Okay, thank you very much. I won't talk long, I promise. My name is Caroline Kearney. I am the Program Manager for the Korean Peninsula at the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies. And I wanted to take today as an opportunity to share with you about some of our work that we do engaging North Koreans, and as well as hosting meetings and our other work promoting peace on the Korean Peninsula. So I will tell you a bit first about CPCS. We are a Cambodian NGO based in Siem Reap, Cambodia. We work in the field of conflict transformation and peace building. We are about 17 staff from 8 different countries. Most of my co-workers are from Asia. And our aim is to end violent conflict in Asia by supporting peace processes in the region, in the Asia region. Much of our work is in Myanmar, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and of course the Korean Peninsula. So on the Korean Peninsula, I say we focus on about 6 areas. We have a bilateral relationship with the Korean National Peace Committee. That's a North Korean organization based in Pyongyang. They're tasked to deal with issues of peace and reconciliation. So we've met with them maybe 6 or 7 times in the past 2 years. They come to Cambodia for usually 4 or 5 days at a time. We share with them the way we practice conflict transformation and peace building in the Asia region, some of our lessons learned from other conflicts and peace processes in Myanmar and Philippines especially. And then we also share with them our perspectives of the Korean Peninsula conflict or peace process, and they also share their perspectives with us. They also attend our annual conference, which is attended by 200 peace builders from the Asia region, and per their request, they always give a presentation at that conference on the status of the peace process. We've also co-hosted workshops with UNDPPA for DPRK diplomats. That's just a part of their regular work to engage DPRK as a member state and increase their understanding of how they can engage with the UN. And we also hold what we call stakeholder consultations. We invite organizations from primarily the 6 party top countries, plus the EU, and kind of the criteria for those that join all believe that engaging with North Korea is the way to resolve the conflict. So most of those organizations are from the US, DPRK, ROK, China, Japan, but also the EU. So we share about our work, try to collaborate a bit, make sure there's no overlap in the type of work we're doing, and then discuss how we might be able to collaborate and align our strategies going forward. CPCS also visits the DPRK regularly. I think our director's been 4 or 5 times now. And also hosts other organizations that are interested in going to the DPRK and learning about the country. And then let's see, the 5th is we conduct briefings in key capital cities, trying to influence governments and inform them about our work. So we've been in the past few months just to Brussels and met with some key EU agencies there. Been to Washington at least twice and met with State Department and US Congressmen. And going forward, we plan to increase our engagement in Jakarta with ASEAN to encourage them to be more active on the Korean issue. And so In those cities, we often utilize our publications as our talking points. So we've published two. One is called Strengthening Understanding Through Dialogue, which we published in May of 2017. And then the most recent publication, many of you may have. If you don't, there are more copies up front. That one we just released in January of this year. It's called Seizing a Window of Opportunity for Peace. This publication traces the domestic political events of the last up to 10 years in the DPRK, ROK, and US, and how they got to the point of being ready for dialogue in 2018. So it provides mostly the background events and the motivations that got the three countries there, and then takes us through the Olympics and Singapore and so on. And the recommendations in that paper are mostly that all three countries must do their best to understand each other and move the process forward, especially as there is a timeline, as the title suggests, about seizing a window of opportunity for peace. The deadline is nearing and will close. The DPRK, of course, has publicly announced that their deadline is December 2019. I've also been told that the US's deadline is in the summer, so progress needs to be made rapidly before this opportunity closes. And just to say, going forward, we continue to do this type of work. We've found that our North Korean partners are very interested in learning from us and sharing with us and meeting with the other organizations that we introduce them to. But I should also add, kind of as I close out, especially in this maybe academic setting, is that I will soon be leaving my position to start a PhD at Yonsei University in Seoul this fall. So I am quite excited about that to deepen my understanding in that next way. So that's just a brief overview of the type of work that we are doing. But I will pass it over to Glenn.
Yeah, I mean, I will be very brief as well. I thought it would be useful to talk a little bit about the track 2 work. In fact, with North Korea, it's always track 4.5. In that there are no NGOs in North Korea. They're always talking to the government. Whatever the title is, it's the government. Or rather, not the government, it could be the party. I've been travelling to North Korea since 1997. That was my first visit, and I've been there just shy of 50 times. I dealt with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, obviously, particularly the number 2 European department, which is the one that deals with the European Union. I don't know whether this is on. Yes, the one that deals with the European Union member states, rather than, if you want, what was left of the remnants of the Soviet Empire. I've also dealt with the Institute for Disarmament and Peace. There's been a number of events I've been at, but primarily my interlocutor has been the party. It's an accident rather than by design, in that obviously the first time I went there, I went as a member of the European Parliament. And that meant my obvious interlocutor was the party. And of course, in North Korea, like in China, and for that matter Vietnam, and one could argue how far that extends, the people who really make the decisions are the party and not the ministries. I wish I could say the same about the United Kingdom as a member of the Labour Party, but it's not the case. It's the ministries that make the decisions there. But in North Korea, it's rather different. And that's given the group I work with an opportunity to talk to people very close to, if you want, the decision makers. About 7 years ago, I was approached by the party to say that the new international secretary of the party would actually like to set up a dialogue with European political parties. Now, the reality of that is that no European political party whose membership won't fit in the telephone box is going to have a dialogue with the Workers' Party of Korea. But what I suggested instead was to try and get together a group of former politicians to engage in this dialogue. And we set that up, and that's been ongoing for 7 years now. And our interlocutor changes. It's always our host has always been the International Secretary of the party. It was Kim Jong-il back in 2012-13. He moved around the time that Jan Song-tek met with his rather brutal end, and was replaced by Kang Suk-ju, who was the chief negotiator in the six-party talks. He got colon cancer. We did bring him, we had a series of meetings with him. We did bring him to Brussels on one occasion in 2014. But by 2015 he was very ill, and he died literally, I think, about 9 days after being replaced as head of the International Department by Ri So-yong, who was the former foreign minister, and he's our interlocutor at the moment. We have, as I said, this ongoing dialogue. I think it's useful. Obviously, we're there in a slightly, like the CPCS, we're there in a slightly different capacity. We're not Americans negotiating, so it's a less confrontational, if you want, relationship. And frankly, Pyongyang is interested in trying to, if you want, pull the European Union away from merely following the position of the United States. That was probably partly triggered by the fact that back in 2001 there was we sent a high-level delegation. The President of the Office of the Council, Goran Persson, the Swedish Prime Minister, Javier Solana, the head of Common Foreign and Security Policy, and Chris Patton, the Commissioner for External Trade, to Pyongyang, and we set up the Human Rights Dialogue, and we ended up with having our own strategy paper for North Korea. Since then, we've gradually pulled back in line with the United States, but certainly the editorials in Rodom Shimun around this period were talking about the European Union as being the only hegemonic power capable of challenging the United States. So you can see where they're coming from, even if I don't entirely recognise the European Union in that form. As I said, that dialogue's ongoing. What do we learn? And the advantage of talking to people at that level, Ri So-yong is head of the International Department of the Party, he's on the Central Committee, of course, he's on the Politburo, he's on the executive of the Politburo. He was in the room with Xi, with Trump, and with President Moon. Firstly, of course, they're interested in unification, but not now. I mentioned earlier the two countries, one system. They're interested in reforming, in modernising the economy. They don't use the word reform, but they take the view that early unification can only be assimilation, like with East Germany. So they take the view that it's the fault of the United States. We can argue about that because of the if you want the sanctions. If they could be released from sanctions, they could grow their economy at 10–12% a year. Certainly, countries in the immediate region have managed to do that rather successfully. And then in 25 years' time, we can seriously talk about some kind of unification from a position of at least economically being in the same range, being in the same league. At the moment, they're 45 to 50 times poorer. That means they're not in the same league at all. Secondly, whether it's true or not, they certainly take the view that maximum pressure does not work. I mean, the way I put it, not them, would be the idea that Kim Jong-un is going to be faced with somebody telling him across the table that people in Chongqing are living on potatoes and people are only getting 2 hours of electricity a day rather than 4, and he throws his hands in the air and says, well, I'm going to have to go and talk to the Americans. Actually doesn't work in a country like North Korea. It's more the fact that if you want their technology work on November the 29th, 2017, they actually launched that missile, they actually tested that bomb, and that's what enabled them to make the switch away. And I said some of that earlier. We're interested in pivoting to the United States away from Beijing. I suspect because they wanted to set up the same relationship they used to have between Moscow and Beijing. They could play the two off against each other. But of course, if you're going to set up that new seesaw relationship, you've got to actually pivot to Washington first before you start oscillating. Inside the Workers' Party of Korea, there is some debate about the way forward. There are people who are in favour of engagement, and there are people who take the Conservatives who take a hard-line view that we were okay as we were. And I certainly think that post-Hanoi, there was a danger that Conservative view came to reassert itself. It looks that following the visit by President Xi, who backed the pro-engagement faction, and the resulting summit, mini-summit, or whatever you want to call it, in Panmunjom, that's been headed off for the moment. In terms of sanctions, they're not really interested in the lifting of US sanctions. They take the view that the Congress is unable to lift them. What they're interested in is the lifting of UN sanctions. And very often that gets confused as people talk about the US lifting sanctions. The reality is if the US came to the Security Council and said we want to mitigate sanctions even on a temporary basis, Russia, China, nor France or the United Kingdom are going to use their veto. So you just need to be clear what they're talking about, which means the kind of vision they have is slightly different. And equally, I mentioned it this morning, peace treaty, again, impossible to get through Congress. So you need some kind of peace settlement, whatever it's actually called, but the idea that there's something that Congress has got to sign off on really doesn't work. The last point I'd make, everyone was very excited last year about the speech. Well, firstly, the announcement after November the 29th, ICBM launch, and the New Year's address. And I was very pleased about it, of course. But there was work going on behind the scenes, which is often unheralded. And many people don't even realise that literally the week after that test, Jeffrey Feltman, the UN Deputy Secretary General for the Department of Political Affairs, actually went to Pyongyang. And in retrospect, it was very clear that his message was, that's what you should be saying in your UN's address. I'm not arguing it would have been in there if the UN hadn't visited, but the fact that the UN did visit actually helped ensure that that actually happened, and that was an important role.
So, okay, we will go further with floor discussions. So, before we go to the floor discussions, I'd like to ask one question, quick question to Ryan. So, as your NGO, when you talk with North Korea about peace and conflict, are you talking about the denuclearization as well?
Yes, I would say we talk about denuclearization, but neither them nor I am nuclear experts. So we've never sat down and mapped out together what denuclearization would look like. But certainly we talk about the political events that surround that, what at least their personal or individual opinions are about how we go forward and all those things. So yes, we are always, every time, I usually see them every 3 to 6 months, and so we're always talking about politics in the last few months and what their opinion or my opinion would be about going forward. So yes, we're always talking about it. Yeah.
Okay.